I mentioned at the outset that I struggled with dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and a little bit of dyspraxia. And there are other sibling conditions as well. So what are those and how do they affect a child? Let's talk about dyscalculia first. Dyscalculia is a difficulty with math, numbers, sequencing, and directional matters, up, down, left, right, and so forth. So how does dyscalculia affect the child? Well, in my case, I had trouble with directional matters, for one thing, left and right. Now, I knew that I wrote with my right hand. And so when I was told, okay, go left or go right, or raise your left hand or raise your right hand, every time I would have to stop and think, okay, which hand do I write with? Okay, I write with this hand. Okay, this is left. And so there was a lag there. And I had to do that for a good 2 or 3 years before I finally got that figured out. Learning sequences is a challenge for dyscalculics. Difficulty following instructions. I want you to do A, B, C, D. I might get to A, but forget about B, C, D, and whatever's after that. Inability to remember multiplication tables. I still can't to this day. Trouble remembering the sequences of the alphabet. Now, I can say the alphabet. I can recite it A, B, C, D all the way through. But I would make a horrible filing clerk. Because if you gave me a file, unless it was something that was after A or B, and says, I want you to file this, I would have to recite the alphabet in my head to say, okay, it comes after this letter. And I would have to do that every time. I just can't seem to remember that. Dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is difficulty in putting words on a page. It can involve poor handwriting and a challenge in holding a pencil properly. Now, probably the biggest challenge with dysgraphia is difficulty forming sentences on a page. If I had to write out my stories, or if you asked me to write out a couple sentences, I would really struggle to do that. I require a word processor to be able to do that. We know what we want to say in our heads, but getting it from our head on paper, that's the challenge. Remember Agatha Christie? She couldn't get it down on paper. She had to dictate her stories. It has taken me years of effort and the use of technology like word processors to compensate for this difficulty. Dysphonia. Dysphonia is difficulty coordinating the sequences of muscle movement of the mouth, lips, or tongue, resulting in slow or difficult to understand speech. Then there's auditory dyslexia. That's difficulty understanding the spoken word. Now, while the brain is usually hardwired for speech, as we mentioned in the outset, some dyslexic brains have trouble processing the spoken word through the mental buffering and integration system. In other words, speech comes too fast to assimilate the words and understand what's being said. It's just like me trying to read subtitles. It goes too fast before I can actually read it and comprehend it. Dyspraxia. Dyspraxia is a lack of coordination in muscle movements. And you notice I didn't trip when I came out here, so I'm doing much better there. See, no child is born coordinated, but these skills, they must be learned and practiced. However, for the child with dyspraxia, it's as if their brain isn't always sure where their body is as it moves through space. The result? They're clumsy and accident-prone. Now, my mother always said that I was like a bull in a china closet. I was always tripping over things, dropping things, knocking things over. Now, this was especially difficult when we would have company. As I got older, we would have company or we'd go out to eat. Inevitably, I would drop my silverware, knock over my milk, whatever it was. And sometimes I would be ridiculed or teased about it. And more than one occasion, I left the table in tears and wouldn't come back because I was so embarrassed. As you can see, there can be a lot of complications, a lot of challenges with dyslexia and its sibling conditions. So what will help? What will help to give every child, not just dyslexics, the best start in life?